Let's get right into it. Number 9. Spring guns. Imagine you're living in the 1800s and you're tired of people stealing from your property. You could hire a guard, but that's expensive. You could get a dog, but dogs need food and attention. So some people came up with a brilliant but terrifying solution: spring guns. Picture this. You're a thief in the 1800s, sneaking into what you think is an empty barn. You trip over a wire, and suddenly you've been shot by a robot from the past. These weren't fancy AI-powered machines. They were simple, but deadly effective. Think of them like deadly mousetraps, but instead of snapping shut on a mouse, they fired actual bullets at human-sized targets. The setup was pretty straightforward. You'd mount a loaded gun, attach a tripwire to the trigger, and wait for someone to have the worst day of their life. Farmers started using them everywhere, in barns, orchards, and even their homes. These guns didn't care if you were a hardened criminal or just a lost traveler looking for directions. One famous case involved a man who set up a spring gun in his garden to protect his vegetables. A trespasser climbed over his wall to steal some produce, triggered the gun, and got seriously injured. The court case that followed basically said, maybe automatically shooting people for stealing fruit is a bit extreme. The courts eventually ruled that you can't use deadly force to protect mere property. They basically said, maybe let's not turn every farm into an automated killing field. Spring guns were eventually banned in most places, but some places still allowed them well into the 20th century. In fact, Iowa didn't ban them until 1967, after 2 burglars were killed by one. Today, it's illegal pretty much everywhere to set up automated deadly weapons on your property. Instead, we have to settle for boring old security cameras and alarm systems. Way less effective, but also way less likely to accidentally unalive the mailman. Number 8. Spotlighting. A deer is out at night, doing deer things. Suddenly, a bright light hits its eyes. Its brain goes completely blank. It just stands there, frozen. This is spotlighting, and it's so effective it got banned almost everywhere. Animals that are active at night have special eyes that collect as much light as possible. When you suddenly blast them with a bright light, their eyes can't adjust fast enough. It's like when someone takes a flash photo of you, but 1,000 times worse. They can't tell if they should run or fight, so they just freeze. Back in the day, hunters would use this trick to get ridiculous amounts of game. They'd drive around at night with powerful lights, spot some deer, and that was it. Free dinner. It was like playing a video game with cheat codes turned on. The practice was so effective that deer populations started dropping like crazy in some areas. Hunters would bring home more meat in one night than they'd usually get in a month. Some hunters would use aircraft spotlights, the kind used to guide planes. These lights were so powerful, they could temporarily blind animals from hundreds of yards away. Imagine being hit with the sun itself while you're trying to have a midnight snack. The practice got banned in most places by the 1960s, not just because it was decimating wildlife populations, but also because it was considered unsportsmanlike, like bringing a machine gun to a boxing match. Today, if you're caught spotlighting, you're looking at some serious fines. In some places, they'll even take your hunting license away, and your truck, and your guns, and probably your dignity too. Some places still allow spotlighting for specific animals though, like in parts of Australia, where they use it to hunt invasive species. Because sometimes, when you're dealing with pests, being too effective isn't really a problem. Number 7. DDT Pesticide. DDT was like the Superman of pesticides. It killed bugs so effectively that its inventor won a Nobel Prize. This stuff was so good at its job that farmers thought it was a miracle. It saved millions of human lives by killing disease-carrying insects like the mosquitoes that spread malaria, but it was too effective. It didn't just kill bad bugs, it killed everything. It was a chemical apocalypse for wildlife. Birds were laying eggs with shells so thin they'd break before hatching, leading to a massive decline in species like the bald eagle. The chemicals started showing up in soil, in water, and even in mother's milk. It was so persistent that it's still in the environment today, even though it was banned in the US in 1972. Number 6. Weather modification. Back in the Vietnam War, the US military had this secret operation called Project Popeye. They were trying to control the actual weather. The idea was to make it rain so much that the enemy couldn't move their supplies. They would fly planes into clouds and spray them with silver iodide. This would make the clouds dump tons of rain, turning dirt roads into mud pits. And it worked. They managed to extend Vietnam's monsoon season by an extra 30 to 45 days. The military was basically playing God with the weather. They did this for 5 years straight, running over 2,600 cloud seeding missions. Scientists realized they could potentially create hurricanes, tsunamis, and even earthquakes. They could flood entire regions or create droughts that would starve millions. World leaders realized this was too much power for anyone to have. So in 1978, they signed a treaty making it illegal to use weather as a weapon. It's called the Environmental Modification Convention. But weather modification for peaceful purposes is still legal. Countries like China regularly seed clouds to make it rain for farming. They even used it to clear the skies before the 2008 Olympics. Number 5. Code-grabbing devices. Imagine you're walking away from your car, clicking your key fob to lock it. You hear that familiar beep-beep, see the lights flash, and think everything's secure, but someone nearby is holding what looks like a regular phone, and they just copied your car key. These are called code-grabbing devices, and they're so effective at stealing cars that just owning one can land you in prison. When you press your key fob, it sends a radio signal to your car. This signal contains a special code that tells your car it's really you. The code grabber catches this signal mid-air, like a tiny digital pickpocket. These devices don't just record the code, they can copy it perfectly and replay it whenever they want. So that guy with the device can come back later, press a button, and your car thinks you just unlocked it. Early versions of these devices could grab codes from up to 100 yards away. Thieves would hang out in parking lots, collecting car codes like they were Pokemon. One device could store hundreds of different car codes at once. They became such a problem that governments around the world started making them straight up illegal to own, not just illegal to use for stealing cars, illegal to have at all. In some places, getting caught with one of these is like getting caught with lock-picking tools and a ski mask outside a bank. Car companies tried fighting back by making their key fobs more sophisticated. Modern cars use rolling codes that change every time you use them. Thieves just made better code grabbers. Number 4. Robocalling Software. Your phone rings and you see a number that looks local. Maybe it's your kid's school or that job you applied for. But it's Rachel from Card Services again, for the 5th time today. Back in 2019, a single robocalling operation made 1 billion calls in less than 5 months. That's about 7.4 million calls per day, or about 5,000 calls every minute. And this was just one operation. These systems are so effective that even if only 0.001% of people fall for the scam, it's still hugely profitable. If you make 1 billion calls, even that tiny success rate means 10,000 victims. The software is also terrifyingly smart. It can detect when someone answers and transfer them to a real person instantly. It can spoof local numbers to make you more likely to pick up. It can even recognize answering machines and hang up to save time. And the worst part is it's dirt cheap. For about $500, you can set up a robocalling system that can make millions of calls. That's less than what most people spend on their phone. The software got so effective that Congress had to pass multiple laws to try to stop it. They even made it illegal to spoof caller IDs, but the software keeps evolving. Every time they pass a new law, someone figures out a new loophole. It's like playing whack-a-mole with a really persistent robot. So next time your phone rings and it's Jenny from Medicare, you're not just dealing with an annoying scammer. You're up against a piece of software so effective it literally had to be outlawed. Number 3. The lawn dart ban. These metal darts you'd toss in your backyard weren't your pub night plastic darts. These were basically mini javelins that could pierce through anything. They were so effective at what they did that they got banned in 1988. They were too good at going through things, including, unfortunately, human skulls. In just 1 decade, these lawn darts sent 6,100 people to the emergency room. That's more casualties than some small wars. The breaking point came when a 7-year-old girl was killed by one of these flying death spikes. The company tried to argue that they were sports equipment. Number 2. Anabolic steroids. Anabolic steroids let you recover from a workout while you're still at the gym. Back in the 1950s, Soviet athletes were dominating the Olympics as if they'd found a real-life God mode. They were pumping their athletes full of testosterone and other steroids. Athletes using steroids could train harder, longer, and recover faster than humanly possible. It was like having a real-life superhero serum. A normal person needs about 48 hours to recover from an intense workout, but with steroids, you could hit the gym again in just a few hours. Your muscles would grow so fast it was like watching a time-lapse video. Athletes were breaking records left and right. Other countries started noticing that their athletes were getting destroyed by these Soviet superhumans, so they started their own steroid programs. It turned into an arms race, but with biceps instead of missiles. By the 1970s, steroids were everywhere in professional sports. Athletes felt like they had to use them just to stay competitive. If you didn't use them, you were basically showing up to a gunfight with a knife. These drugs worked so well that they completely destroyed the idea of fair competition. Plus, they had some pretty nasty side effects: liver damage, heart problems, and guys growing breasts. Some athletes' organs were aging decades faster than the rest of their bodies. By 1975, the International Olympic Committee finally banned anabolic steroids. They were banned for being too good at what they did. It's like banning a calculator because it makes you too good at math. Number 1. The Napster Music App. Imagine it's 1999. You're sitting at your computer, waiting 30 minutes for one song to download while your mom yells at you for tying up the phone line. Then, a college student named Sean Fanning creates something that would change music forever. Napster was basically a digital music library where anyone could share their music with everyone else, and it worked way too well. Within months, millions of people were using it to share their favorite songs for free. At its peak, Napster had over 80 million users. The app was so effective at sharing music that the entire music industry had a collective panic attack. Record labels were watching their CD sales drop faster than a heavy metal drum beat. Artists were freaking out too. Metallica, a band that made its name being anti-establishment, suddenly became very pro-establishment and sued Napster. But while some artists were losing money, others, like the bands Dispatch and OAR, built their entire fan bases through Napster sharing. The record companies were terrified because Napster showed their entire business model was obsolete. It's like someone invented a teleporter, and all the car companies realized they were in trouble. The courts eventually shut Napster down in 2001, but the damage was done. The entire music industry had to change. iTunes, Spotify, and every other music streaming service today are all basically Napster's children, just wearing suits and ties instead of hoodies. That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.